Friday's here, NBL Now is here. It might only be round 3, but there's some games of real consequence at the moment. We had one last night in Adelaide. The 36ers get their first win of the season. Joel Peterson here with you. And great to be joined by the 300 gamer, the recently retired Brad Newley, to break it all down. Newles, good morning. Great to be with you.
Good morning, mate. I'm fresh off my commercial gym workout. I'm one of the regular guys now, mate, and ready to have a good chat about all things NBL this coming round.
It's the first time that we've sort of spoken to you as part of this NBL season. Of course, you were part of our Olympics podcast in the off-season with Jack and Andrew Bogut. How's life as an onlooker through the first 2 weeks of the NBL campaign?
Yeah, it's a different aspect, I guess. I can't say I've been completely focused on all the players and who's gone where, because I've obviously got a new role that I have at Melbourne United, which is trying to sell player sponsorships. Anyone out there, feel free to give me a call. But yeah, so as you know, as the season grows a little bit and things start to settle down, I'm starting to get a bit more eye on who's doing well. The lineups that are going out there, the style of game that's around this year. I'm noticing a lot more 3-point shots going up early. That's definitely doubled down on that one. So yeah, so just a little bit of a different angle to look at it. And I don't have to. I go to bed at night not worrying about who my opposition is the next day. It's a little bit different when you retire. So it's a lot of fun, and it's been a bit of an adjustment, but I'm enjoying it.
It's always a nice feeling when you don't have to worry about that kind of thing. So last night, of course, 10-point win to Adelaide. Isaac Humphries had a big night. So much talked about him in the build-up to this one. It was a great night in the end for the 36ers. The only negative was a strange thing out of last night where Adelaide's S&C coach, Nick Popovich, was ejected. So an incident in the third quarter, he stepped on the court, a bit of a scrimmage out there. He essentially got told on by Luke Brennan at the other end of the floor, who noticed it and said, hey, that guy, he did that. You need to get him out of here. So he got ejected at the start of the fourth quarter. Clearly, S&C in his job title does not stand for serene and calm. It is strength and conditioning all the way. Have you ever seen that before at a game?
I actually think it might be an absolute first. Personally, one thing that happened to me when I was a kid, my mum got a tech foul in the stands and I got a tech foul on the court. So I'm probably not one to speak about court invasions. But the funny thing was he allowed back out to do the warm downs, or was he just expelled from the arena? So I know Pop quite well. He would have been a bit rattled by that. Credit to Adelaide coming out and getting the win. There was a lot of noise, in the off season. I'm an Adelaide boy, so I get a few things back and forth that I hear from interstate, and a lot of people were saying I'm never going to the game again and all this kind of stuff, and a lot of boycotts happening, and you look, they had almost 10,000 people there. They had a win, so if you're a franchise owner, you'd probably be pretty happy with that round one. So good win for them. They needed it. As for the Phoenix, tough start. So a lot of things that happened there. It's early days, but I did like the game of Isaac last night. You play with any good big man. I play with Andrew Bogut a lot of years. Alex Marich, you got to service those guys if you want them to help you out. So good to see him get some service early, and I thought he performed really well. And DJ had a really good shooting night. I think he's shooting at about 50-something% from the 3-point line. So he doesn't need to think twice about his outside shooting. And the lineup they had, they looked pretty strong. So happy for them to have a good performance in front of their home crowd.
Montrezl Harrell coming into that starting lineup, all four of their big names, so Harrell, Davis, Humphries, DJ, all 10-plus points, which was a good one. And as you said, they're a team that's taking a lot of threes at the moment. They're knocking them down. On the converse, so Southeast Melbourne, a rough shooting night for them, really. They never, 10-point margin in the end, they got it back to single figures late. They never really looked like it. Aside from Matt Hurt, who has been stellar, and he's been a one-man band for that Phoenix team, where do they go now? What would the conversations they would be having look like into a 9-day break?
Yeah, I mean, probably through the preseason, probably how they typically are, that they've always tried to be a high-scoring team. And it seems like they're doubling down on that. Like, okay, we're just going to go with more and more from the outside. I don't know. Do you need to mix some things up, get it inside a little bit? They don't really have any real inside players. So, they're one of those sides. All of a sudden, they hit another 5 or 6 of those threes. It's a different ballgame, really. Guys like Glover, I'm sure he's itching to have a better game. Like, he's a much better player than what he's showing up right now. He's a championship winner. I had to deal with him in NBL 1 this year, and he beat us on a buzzer beater and had about 25 threes in that game. So I know he's due for a big one. Sobes is probably a game away from having a good game as well. So I think their style of play They're really backing in, and it's just a matter of they got to hit some shots, and that'll make a huge difference. As far as the conversations goes, I think you just got to keep your group together. I think they're 0-4, but what happens in the NBL? You have a good month. It's a 10-team competition. You can turn around seriously quick. You take care of your home games. You jag a couple of away ones that you smoked early. All of a sudden, you're back at 500. Anything can happen. So I don't think it's time to completely panic, but maybe tie up some loose ends. Defensively, it doesn't seem to be a big priority for them at the moment. They probably need to look at some things there. There's a couple of just straight blow-bys that shouldn't happen at NBL level, in my opinion. They need to do a bit better job with that. But I think Mike and Sam, they'll get together and put something in place to hopefully turn things around.
Yeah, the extra game, of course, in this NBL 25 campaign, and then you've got the play-in spots as well. So it's not all doom and gloom for the South East Melbourne Phoenix, despite that statistic floating around about no 0-4 team having ever made the playoffs. So they've got a 9-day break into Brisbane. Adelaide go back on Saturday to play Illawarra. Tonight's doubleheader is a real tasty one. It begins with Cairns and Tassie. We'll touch on that in a second. It ends with Perth and Melbourne United, which is a perfect place to pick up the conversation with your Newls, because you were part of 3 pretty enthralling games between these two teams last year. So last year, Melbourne win 2, Perth win 1. It felt like a little bit of a travesty. We didn't get a playoff series between these two in the end, given the quality of the regular season matchups. So 2 of those games went into overtime. 1 of those went into double overtime. Before last year, Melbourne had won 8 in a row in Perth. They go over there tonight with a pretty good record in that part of the world. What's this rivalry like? What's the build-up in the week leading into a game against Perth like as you're a Melbourne United player?
I mean, the one constant from probably all those series is Bryce, right? So, the priority at practice, anyone who comes up against Perth, the obvious thing is you take the ball out of his hands. And, watching Sydney round 1, I thought they did or whatever, round 2, I can't remember when they played them last week, but they did Bill Cole did a sensational job of, limiting Bryce. Unfortunately, some fouls got him to the line, and that's how he got himself going. But that's your number one priority, to take care of Bryce Cotton. The one wild card at the moment who's taken my eye is Elijah Pepper off the bench. He's not shy at all, and respect to him, young guy. I've been there myself. You're coming in, you're playing for a coach who backs his players offensively. Johnny, really an old teammate of mine, and he's got an absolute green light to go to work. And you bring in Ben Henshaw, all of a sudden they got some good young Aussie talent. So it'll be a challenge for the United boys, without Delhi, that we're probably going to touch on in a sec. But, I expect to see a little bit more from Chris tonight. Chris has been a little quiet, but, things will open up for him. But when we say Chris is quiet, what's happening is that he's taken a defender out of the lineup for the other team. So things open up a lot for other guys. Shea, Ian Clark, Rob Lowe, Jack White's arguably been our best player this season. So I'm looking for big things from our guys tonight. It should be a cracker match.
How does the Delhi omission? Of course, he's out with the birth of a child, which is very exciting for him and the family, no doubt. How does his omission change things from Melbourne?
Yeah, number 3 for Delhi. Congratulations to him and Anna, little girl, I believe. So the things change a little bit. Delhi has a lot of the ball, so you expect obviously it will go over to Shea now. You think maybe Tanner Krebs will play a little bit more, given that one out. He's itching for a big game himself. He's been training really well. He had a great NBL 1 season. I think tonight could be another wild card for us. Melbourne United. Sorry, I can't say us. It's hard to. I am Melbourne United still, but
we'll forgive you. We'll forgive you.
But it's going to be a good matchup. Delhi is the heart and soul of the team. He had a great first few games this year, so hopefully guys will step up in his place, and I'm sure he'll be watching from home.
Pete had Bryce Cotton on the pod, so we've sort of got one each way this week, so that's nice. I'm sure Bryce slipped a couple of us's in there at some point.
You're not
so Henshaw comes back. Henshaw comes back in. Webster goes out for the Wildcats, so there's sort of some changes on both sides for both teams. Who do you think wins it in the end? Who comes out victorious tonight? If you sort of just take a holistic picture of this one.
Yeah, I think Melbourne United, Dean and Chris, the guys, that they're comfortable playing in that venue. Having already played a game there this year, the track record that the club's had there over the previous amount of games. Having a healthy Shaylee helps as well. I think he's in for a big one as well. No Webster. They tend to match up a little bit. I think he could have his way a little bit amongst the guards. Another guy I probably haven't mentioned is the import for Perth. He's the small forward. His name escapes me. I probably should be doing my research.
Dylan Windler.
But yeah,
Dylan Windler.
He's a great rebounder for his size, and he's one of those guys. Got a bit of that Perth old school, go to the glass with every shot. Second chance points, and I think he'll become a fan favourite really quickly. So he's probably someone Melbourne needs to get a body on early, otherwise he could have a good night. But yeah, I'm backing in Melbourne for the win. I think just the style of play that we play, the defensive style holds up. The record speaks for itself. The last few seasons, they've always been there at the end of the season. So I'm tipping Melbourne for tonight.
9:30 Eastern time tonight. That game, of course, on ESPN. The early game is Tassie and Cairns. It's up at the Cairns Convention Centre in a snake pit where they were great last week. The Cairns Taipans, they looked absolutely terrific against Adelaide. Rob Edwards, the microwave, he was great. Taron Armstrong in, Jackson McCoy in. All of a sudden, Adam Ford's got point guards coming out of his ears after having none over the opening couple of rounds. How do you think this one plays out?
Cairns were unlucky at the start of the year that they got that injury bug. They're starting to get some health back into the lineup. It's going to be an interesting battle. You got Cairns, who like to get up and down, take a lot of threes, whereas Tassie like to get a little bit in the half court, slow it down, almost a little bit European style of basketball. So two different kinds of basketball. Matchups wise, I think there's going to be some great clashes out there. I expect I think Cairns can beat them, but if Tassie defend the way they can, I'm calling Tassie in a high scoring affair.
Will Magnay was great last week. Had arguably the best game of his career, coming off a terrific season in NBL 24. Of course, he went to the Olympics. You watched that very closely throughout the Olympics campaign. Do you think that will make him a better player coming back this season, and we might see more performances like we saw last Saturday night?
Whenever someone goes through a campaign like that, the level that you have to get yourself to just to be invited into the squad and to actually make the team, your day-to-day training, the conversations you're having with guys who've played at higher levels, you just naturally you improve. And I think once you come back to clubland, all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, this is, I don't want to sound arrogant, but it's a little bit easier for me because I've come out of this, real hard environments. And anyone they get involved with those kind of programs, they always come out and have great seasons off the back of it. Just Will's got to make sure his feet are a little bit, he seems to be slipping over a little bit, the big fella. I don't know what, can someone sort him out with some footwear? Because it seems to be going down quite easily. I don't know if he learnt that at Boomer's camp, but he's doing a good job.
He wasn't alone in Tassie last week. I'm heading down there on Sunday. I'll take some no more gaps and see if I can fix a few holes in that roof maybe. Tomorrow night at Brisbane's new venue. So the Bullets christen their new venue at Boondall. The first game tomorrow night, Adelaide and Illawarra. The second game is, of course, Sydney and Brisbane. So they move out to the Brisbane Entertainment Centre. They've been there before. You've been there before, Brad Newley. You're 2-0 in that venue, so a big tick for you. They take on the Sydney Kings, though, which is no easy feat. First of all, what do you remember playing there? And secondly, do you think the Bullets can christen their new home with a win?
Entertainment Centre. It's Brisbane Entertainment Centre, in Boondall. It's been a while, a bit of a return to the glory days for them. I believe they won the championship there, their game 3 with Melbourne, or game 2 or something years and years ago. So, there's a bit of good history there. And, of course, you got in the 80s with Leroy and all those guys, some fantastic franchises. But, I'm sure the new venue will bring about a lot of energy from the young guys being in there for the first time. Sydney, they play in front of those kind of crowds all the time, so it won't be anything, surprising for them. And they play a pretty high-octane style of basketball. My memories from playing there was the NBL was in a bit of a phase where it was kind of coming back. I think Andre was coaching the Bullets. It might have been Anthony Petrie's last game. Shout out to Peach. But, it was a good night. The Kings got a win. I think we were both battling for the old semi-pro 5th place. It was before the top 4 when the Kings were having a bit of a downer. So I think we got the win. So, good memories from there for sure. As far as the game's concerned, I expect Sydney to get back to where they were. They seemed a bit tired. Gorge spoke about that in the press conference. A fresh Sydney up against a Brisbane team that's pretty hungry. It makes for a pretty good match, if you ask me. But I'm still going to tip the Kings.
So all of that action on ESPN across the course of the weekend. On Sunday, the early game is Melbourne and Cairns. You can catch that game on ESPN and, of course, on Channel 10. The late game, Tassie and Perth. You can catch that on ESPN and, of course, on 10 Play and 10 Bold. You're making your courtside debut on Sunday, Brad, in your new role with Melbourne United. Looking forward to getting out there and I would delicately describe it as schmoozing.
Nailed that one on the head, mate. Just making sure people's cups are nicely topped up, tell them how great they are and how great I was. That's my role. So I've seemed to have fallen on my feet. It's been a lot of fun, and really looking forward to. I don't know how much of the game I'm actually going to watch, mate. So there'll be a lot of chit chat on the sidelines. That's for sure.
It'll be a great weekend of hoops. It's already been a thrilling start, and it's going to continue across the course of the weekend. Newell, great doing business with you. Thanks for your company, and all the best for your weekend and for Sunday.
Forward to the weekend.
Great to have 300 gamer Brad Newley with us on NBL Now. Thanks for your company. Big weekend of hoops coming up. ESPN, of course, for all the action across the course of the weekend. NBL.com.au, the NBL app. You can get live stats there, Supercoach scores, the absolute lot. We'll be back with you next week.